So I'm at Local Color Farm HQ, about to start a two-part video series on soil blocking. I've never done it before, so it's going to be an adventure and trial and error. So stick around. I'm using a variant of the Elliot Coleman style soil blocking mix. My base is going to be a soil compost combo that I picked up at a local hardware store. Hopefully in the future we can actually use our own compost and worm castings and whatnot. But for the time being, this is largely, that's what this is made out of: soil, worm castings, all sorts of things. Good things that will feed my soil, feed my plants. We're also using some perlite for aeration and drainage. And some blood meal for nitrogen. Nitrogen is important for good leaf and green things development. And bone meal for calcium and phosphorus. Phosphorus is really important for good root development. You want good healthy roots, you need to put phosphorus in. We're also going to be using peat moss. That was not my first choice. There's some question about the sustainability of peat moss, given that you're cutting into old growth peat bogs and releasing carbon, but it's what I could get locally. So for this year, that's what I'm gonna have to use. Hopefully in subsequent years I can find a substitute. For now, we'll use what we can get. And the first step, of course, is going to be sifting all of these ingredients to break up any lumps, or and to make sure that we have a very fine mixture. And so my first step is going to be to make a sifter or sieve. We're going to take a 1 gallon mop bucket that I had that I don't use anymore, and a drill bit, or drill with a 1/2 inch bit. A lot of people use hardware cloth and a wooden frame to make their sieves, which is great, but Everett's out of town right now, and I am more comfortable using a power drill when no one's around than I am using a saw when no one's around. I think the chances of me cutting off a finger are pretty higher than me drilling myself in the leg. It's really critical not to push. This bucket is so old, it's a little brittle, so I have to just let the drill do its thing and not push on it, or I'll crack the bucket like I just did a little while ago. Okay, this is kind of fun. Admittedly, this was inspired by the period of time when I was a poor college student and I wanted to sift flour for a cake, and I used a colander. I don't see why this won't work. We'll see. I love giving new life and purpose to something that is old and probably otherwise would be thrown away. I mean, it's not the prettiest, but it'll do. And we're gonna make sure to get all the plastic burrs out of the bucket so they don't end up in the soil, because that would not be good. So I'm not going to make an enormous batch to start with, because I have a feeling that I may have to tweak it a little bit to get it just right. I'm also going to make everything dry because right now it's still cold enough that things just sitting out in the room, as far as like soil and whatnot, freeze. That is not going to be an issue, I believe, with the plants. And the reason is the germination chamber I built. I don't know if you could see this, but the germination chamber I built is keeping things at a balmy 70 to 75 degrees. Usually it's keeping things about 30 degrees warmer than the ambient room temperature. I've had it on for about 3 hours and we've gotten to 95% humidity and just under 75 degrees. So I'm confident that even without the heater running, the germination chamber will keep things reasonably warm. We are going to have to turn the heater on though in the future to keep things at a temperature that is tolerable for the plants. But since our first few batches of plants are going to be cold hardy annuals, I think they'll be okay. We're not going to be working on growing zinnias and whatnot till about April, mid to late April, which is great because the temperature outside will start being in the 50s, the upper 50s to mid 50s during the day. So the plants will be okay. This is 8 quarts and it is a soil compost mixture. It looks like the recipe calls for 1 part compost to 1 part soil to 1 part peat moss. I'm going to mix 3 bags with 8 quarts essentially of peat moss. That ratio should be pretty close to what I need it to be. We may have to tweak it, but we'll see how it goes. Full disclaimer, this is not a tutorial. I am not an expert. I've never done this before. Don't do what I'm doing unless it works, and then do exactly what I'm doing. I got this 20-gallon tub with a lid so that I can store my dry mixture and just pull what I need, mix it with water, and do my soil blocks. Honestly, this has vermiculite already mixed in, so I don't know if I need to add any extra. Not vermiculite, it has perlite. This is gonna be really boring, so we're just gonna cut and come back when it's done. For round 2, I decided to add a few more holes because it just wasn't very fast going. So we'll see what happens. We're also not going to add a whole bag. I think having more soil movement is going, yeah, that makes it a lot faster. When I was at the Red Hard store today picking up a concrete mixing tray to do my soil blocking in, I kind of walked around and discovered they had a $99 cement mixer, which intrigues me because I've seen where people use cement mixers to make compost trammels that allow them to sieve their compost automatically. This is appealing because I can use the same trammel, if I build one, to do all of my soil block material mixing. Ignore all of the soil that's on the floor. It's inevitable. Look how fine can't see that. Look how fine that is. It's nice and fluffy. I discovered from reading on the package that there is a little bit of peat moss already mixed in, which means I'm probably going to err on the side of a little less when I add my peat moss. So we ended up using about 2 buckets of the soil compost mixture. I'm going to err on the side, like I said, of less with peat moss, since there's already a little bit of peat moss in the mixture, and I'm going to add 1 bucket of peat moss. I'm also going to forego the perlite, because I keep saying vermiculite because that's what I'm used to using. We had a place that sold it in bulk in Houston. I used it for my raised beds. So old habits die hard, like calling a winter storm a tropical storm, because that's what you're used to. So I'm going to forego the perlite, so that, because there's already perlite mixed in, I don't want to take away from the nutritional value of the soil block by adding more things that don't really provide much in the way of nutrients for the soil block or the plant. They're just there to help with water retention, and so the soil block is not too dense. Whenever I'm working with something that's particularly dusty, like straw or hay, or the wood ash from my fireplace, which I save as an amendment, I always wear some sort of mask to protect my lungs, because I know hay lung is actually a thing. It's killed farmers in the past. I don't want to go down that road. You notice I'm starting to get some of the bigger chunks. Again, I'm probably going to mix that with my potting soil. So I have a grow medium for all the little corms and tubers that come later. And now we're just going to mix all this in like it's a cooking video. So make sure everything's nicely incorporated. Whether or not it's going to make good soil blocks, I don't know, but it's very nice. It's got a good texture. It's real fluffy, sprayable, I think is the word. I'm pretty pleased. To this, we're going to add 2 scoops, or about half a cup of blood meal. We're going to add 2 scoops of bone meal. I'm going to have to break that chunk up. And then 2 scoops of green sand. The amendments that I've just added, plus the compost, will provide the soil block with the nutrition that the little plant needs as it grows, germinates and grows. I'd rather err on the side of too little of an amendment than too much, because I believe very strongly there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. Bone meal and blood meal stink so bad. But that's my recipe. So that's the first Mark 1 recipe that we're going to try. Will it block up? Who knows? Stay tuned for part 2. To be continued. If you like this kind of content, you know, watching somebody elbow deep in soil, like and subscribe. This season is going to prove to be an interesting and challenging one for me because I've never done this before. But I think it will be very rewarding. Or hilarity will ensue. Either way, you'll have lots of entertainment. See you next time.